This right here is the future of wrestling.
It's Sunday night, and you know what that means. It's time to go live on 9:30 a.m. The Answer's pro wrestling show, San Antonio Wrestling Showcase, with Dan Cialana.
It is San Antonio Wrestling Showcase. I'm Dangerous Dan Cialana. Thank you so much for joining me on a Sunday night, 9:30 The Answer, where we talk about wrestling every Sunday night. And tonight will be the spookiest show of the year, of course, Halloween night. Hope you guys are having a safe Halloween. Going to talk to Mike Mayer from the Off the Mic Wrestling Podcast in just a moment here, so glad to be talking to him. But right now, real quick, I want to just say thank you to everybody at Dogg Pound Championship Wrestling for inviting me to last night's show, Nightmare at the Woodlawn, at the historic Woodlawn Gym here in San Antonio. Great show from both independent wrestlers from around the country, as well as students from the Dogg Pound Wrestling Dojo, run by Rodney, Mack, and Jazz. So thank you to Rodney, Mack, and Furman Perez from Dogg Pound Dojo for inviting me last night to the show. Had a great time, and definitely a lot of you out there, everybody out there, got to watch some independent wrestling. It's where it's at. It's where the stars of tomorrow are trained, where they're born and bred. So thank you very much, Dogg Pound Championship Wrestling. But right now, I'm going to bring on a guy he's got some mixed views about wrestling. He's a wrestling fan, but sometimes has some mixed views, especially about WWE. His name is Mike Mayer. He runs the Off the Mic Wrestling Podcast. Mike, thanks for joining us on San Antonio Wrestling Showcase.
It's good to be on with you, man, first in this capacity. And that's really cool. Like, I was hearing what you were talking about with, Rodney, Mack, and Jazz.
They're running the Dogg Pound
I just
here.
remember like 20 years ago, and I know Jazz has been doing some stuff with Impact Wrestling. But yeah, I mean, that's awesome, and it's good to hear that they're doing some great stuff there. But yeah, like I said, just great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Jazz and Rodney Mack are married. They moved to San Antonio a few years ago. These days they're still wrestling part-time, but also running that Dogg Pound Dojo. And Rodney Mack was actually on the show a couple weeks ago. Got to meet him. Great guy. Fun to meet him. So great show at Dogg Pound Dojo. Now a show that may not be as good and maybe hasn't been as good lately, NXT. Now, Mike, I don't know if you got a chance to watch NXT Halloween Havoc, and I don't know about you, but for me, man, NXT, I'm rooting for them.
They've changed it up, definitely. I will say this. It's been very different, a lot of shorter matches, a lot of more character-driven stuff. It's very different, bright colors and stuff. And early on, I wasn't really into it. Halloween Havoc was surprisingly, I think it was one of their best efforts in the month of this new era of NXT, because a lot of these matches on this show were actually pretty good. I mean, the ladder match to start off the show, Scareway to Hell. First off, can we just talk about? I hope Io Shirai is okay. That was frightening.
Yeah.
We're talking about Halloween. That was a frightening bump to the ladder. Like, even Indy Hartwell was sitting in the ring, like saying, "Oh my God, I hope I didn't hurt her badly." Like that. But yeah, that whole match was great. Some of the booking has been weird to me because obviously they are clearly based off of what this pay-per-view, or it was basically a de facto takeover kind of.
Yeah.
What they're doing with Toxic Attraction is clearly they're trying to bring in younger male viewers. I was reading something about this. I think it might have been Meltzer or somebody was saying, a lot of the reasoning behind this, Mandy Rose, Gigi Dolan, and JC Jane, they're obviously very attractive. So they're kind of like,
I've noticed
that. Yeah. But what was weird about it is they got a tag team title shot like the second week they were in this 2.0 era, and they lost. And then now they go to a ladder match and they win. I was like, it would have made sense for them to win the first time. So, like, some of the booking's been weird. But yeah, this Halloween Havoc show wasn't. It's like, yeah, it's not like takeover level, but some of the action really delivered. I was especially the women. like really delivered on the show. Like I said, Mandy Rose and Raquel Gonzalez was great too. And like I said, the ladder match was awesome. So, but yeah, I'm with you. The NXT changes have really, in my mind, when it happened, it seemed really unnecessary because I think they were a victim of the fact that they got beaten handily by AEW in a certain spot. They moved, the ratings weren't delivering, and you started seeing all of these independent wrestlers that really made NXT go get released, and now they're kind of going back to what made WWE, or at least in Vince McMahon's mind, made them successful 20 years ago, which
now,
I don't
Mike,
think is
Mike Mayer off the mic wrestling podcast. I don't want to be nitpicky here about language, but you used a word. Well, you said that we saw these NXT wrestlers get released. That's passive language. Let's be honest here. They were fired. WWE made the decision to fire all these wrestlers and basically to hand AEW and Impact Wrestling a bunch of very talented wrestlers on a silver platter. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
I mean, the Adam Cole thing was just highly weird because they just let him walk out the door. They just let him walk out the door, and 2 weeks later, he's showing up on AEW's biggest show of the year out of nowhere. Like, when have we ever seen that in wrestling? Ever?
The Attitude Era. I thought those days were over. I thought the days were over because of non-compete clauses and things like that. I was so surprised to see Adam Cole at that AEW pay-per-view. I actually watched it in a local movie theater, and I just popped. I mean, I can't say right now what I screamed in the movie theater, but I was very excited to see Adam Cole there, and I just can't believe that WWE let all these people go. And just getting back to my sadness about NXT, it's just, I have a heart for NXT, and it's hard for me to just watch this whole NXT 2.0 with the bright colors you talked about, and I just think about the old black and gold brand. I think about NXT TakeOver with Sasha Banks and Bayley, and the whole gritty sort of just cult that NXT, for lack of a better word, made with the fans.
The Barclays Center, like they were selling out full arenas. Like, forget what AEW, like, I'm not trying to rip on it, they do a smart thing where they don't go to like the bigger arenas, they go to like the 8,000 seat arenas. Like NXT in its early stages, and for most of it, like, and we haven't really seen a true takeover in one of those buildings since Portland last year, but we're seeing like 14,000 seat buildings for NXT shows, not main roster shows, NXT shows. And it was because of the action that you were seeing consistently delivered in the ring. So I never got why they had to change things up, why they had to, go to a younger roster, and maybe this will work because I actually am kind of into Braun Breaker, and I think that's one of the few fast track pushes that I've seen in modern WWE. That's actually, like, it doesn't feel forced. The guy feels like he's getting over, and it feels like it's working. And he had a great showing against one of the last remaining pillars of NXT in Tommaso Ciampa. So it's like I'm kind of mixed on it. Early on, I was kind of turned off by it because it's like it's not the NXT that we know, like you said, and that's what's so frustrating for me, is because they didn't need to change anything. Like, this wasn't that wasn't what this was. Like, I mean,
well, how does this help? Mike, how does this help the idea that, okay, so NXT is going head to head now with AEW Dynamite. So why would NXT go, okay, here's what we'll do. Here's how we're going to defeat AEW Dynamite. We're going to just change things up. We're going to call it 2.0 like it's 1998, and we're doing a new software upgrade. And, it's very, no one talks like that anymore. And it just, what we're going to do, like this multicolored color scheme, and it's good. How is that going to defeat AEW? I don't know what the mentality is. I don't know what it is. I think NXT should have just stuck to what they were doing, the gritty look, the dark look, the independent look, because that's how they grew their audience. They built a tribe and a community organically. And you and I don't know about you, but I knew people back in the day when NXT first started, that they would watch NXT but not WWE. They would root for NXT takeovers and they would love it because they go, okay, now when we do NXT Takeover, let's say before Royal Rumble or before WrestleMania, now everyone's going to see this group of wrestlers that we love. It's kind of like the fans were like, this is our show. This is our show.
Yeah.
And that whole tribe, sort of underground insider tribe feel, that special feel of NXT is no longer there. And now it just seems like a generic, just WWE sideshow.
It's basically OVW, or like the training ground that it used to be like years ago. Like that's because let's get real here. Guys like Braun Breaker and Harland, who is Parker Bordeaux. If you followed him on social media, everybody thinks he looks like Brock Lesnar. Like that's what they're doing here. That's what this is about. Like, I mean, I'll also say this. I like Tony D'Angelo. And that guy has gotten over, if you paid attention to that show. Like the whole Italian gangster gimmick, it's working. It's working. That's a lot of fun. So some of these characters I think can work. But then you look at somebody like Joe Gacy, like I hate that gimmick. I hate that gimmick. Like where
is that the guy who talks about safe spaces and stuff?
Yeah, safe spaces. Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing with that guy. That's WWE's way of reminding us that they're out of touch with the culture.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because so this guy
100%
comes out and he says like, you know, we need to be sensitive. We need to talk about our feelings. We need to have nonviolent, resolutions of problems. This guy's basically a modern progressive liberal person.
Absolutely.
And WWE in their minds think, oh, obviously a heel. Obviously a bad guy.
Of course, yeah.
And of course he can be a bad guy because he'll be a hypocrite, because he'll talk about being peaceful and he'll be violent and he'll cheat and he'll rob, cheat, and steal and all that stuff. But it just rubs me the wrong way, because I think, okay, WWE just thinks like, oh, if you have progressive views, then you're naturally a heel.
You're a bad guy. Yeah.
That doesn't make much sense. All right, talking to Mike Mayer from the Off the Mic Wrestling Podcast on a very special edition, Halloween night edition, woo, of San Antonio Wrestling Showcase. And Mike, speaking of NXT, 9 years ago today, October 31st, 2012, a young upstart wrestler made his debut on NXT, a guy named Roman Reigns. Wow. And I watched the video today. He was it's weird to see Roman Reigns just wearing the trunks.
Yeah.
It just seems like he looks very naked. I know that's a very common wrestling uniform, but Roman Reigns in just trunks looks really naked. It's very strange to see.
Yeah.
But man, just imagine what he's done in these 9 years, becoming the tribal chief. There were so many years, Mike, where fans will complain that WWE is forcing Roman Reigns down our throat. Vince McMahon is forcing us to enjoy Roman Reigns. But I don't know about you, but I think Roman Reigns is at the pinnacle of his character these days. And I think the Roman Reigns we're seeing these days on SmackDown is the best Roman Reigns we've seen in all his 9 years. What do you think, Mike?
I would take it a step further. I think he's the best thing in pro wrestling right now.
In all pro wrestling.
And I'm not even sure if it's that close right now, because this character and what he has been able to do as a heel makes you wonder, for when they broke off the Shield in 2014. It makes you wonder for the 6 years when we came back in 2020 after his little hiatus that he had due to COVID. From the minute he came back in August of 2020, he has just been so good. His matches, and not just his matches, the fact that he is willing to compete. Like, we've seen so many Universal Championship matches on free television, like, and he's constantly defending the championship. Yeah, you could say the Usos, like the interference, that a lot of that was to protect Brock, especially at Crown Jewel, but just a lot of. He's hardly ever had a bad match. Every single segment that he is in, you're always glued to your television set. And then the stuff with Paul Heyman, just the way that he is carrying himself, the way he is cutting promos, the way he is talking to people, it makes you wonder, where the hell was this, and why the hell didn't WWE figure this out sooner, rather than just pushing him as the next John Cena? Because, I mean, even as a heel, this guy, every time he gets a big pop, like, people are booing him. Like, this is as good as I have seen a character developed in a long, long time in WWE. And all it took was for WWE to figure out, okay, it's not working with Roman Reigns as a babyface. These people are not going to like him, even if he comes back from leukemia.
Right.
That's not going to make him this massive babyface that they want him to be. So let's turn him heel, and let's just turn him into this arrogant tribal chief. And he's almost like a mob boss. Like, it's just amazing, just the way
he runs WWE.
He just runs
just the
show.
swagger when Roman Reigns comes out. They got the music going on, and sometimes they make you wait. How arrogant, how disrespectful, and how to make people wait. He comes out, he takes 20 minutes to come out there because he takes his time. He walks down the aisle slow. He doesn't, some people do this promo where they're just angry and just hyper and upset. Roman Reigns is slow. He doesn't have to get excited because he knows he's the man. And we hate him because we know at least part of it is true. We know Roman Reigns is the man.
Right.
We know that he's the tribal chief of WWE. We know that he runs things around there. And it's believable. And I love it. And I love that they have just done long-term storytelling. Roman Reigns is the unconquerable heel, the monster. Who's going to defeat him? Is it going to be Cena coming back to defeat him? Nope, he can't. Is it going to be Brock Lesnar? No, he can't. And they're just making us wait and wait and wait. And I love that. I hate when wrestling plays hot potato with the championship. I love it when a heel has a championship for a long time and we're just waiting. Who's going to be the person to finally defeat them? So that leads to my next question, Mike Mayer, off the Mike Wrestling Podcast. Who is going to be the person who finally defeats Roman Reigns, takes away his Universal Championship?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. Like, the more reports that I hear, I thought it made a ton of sense for WrestleMania next year in Dallas to be Roman versus Drew McIntyre. And Drew McIntyre wins it. Because, for one, it seemingly has been like Drew has been one of the guys outside of Roman that they've gone to for a lot in the last couple of years. And what sucked is 2 years ago, about a year and a half ago at WrestleMania, he didn't get his moment. He won the championship, but nobody was there.
Yeah.
But now, based off like you said, long-term storytelling and the way they wrote Brock Lesnar off television, it makes me feel that they're going to run that match back at WrestleMania. And I don't have a problem with that. And if that's the case, I think Roman's going to beat him again, and this may continue to go on well into 2020.
Can you imagine that after all that waiting? Oh my God! And we have a few pay-per-views before WrestleMania in Dallas, which I hope to be there in April, God willing. There's going to be Roman's going to defeat whoever comes up against him. And then, I could see that happening. Brock finally comes back at WrestleMania. The fans are like, yes, Brock Lesnar is finally going to be the man who takes away Roman's championship at WrestleMania. And then what happens next year at WrestleMania? He can't do it. Roman is still the champion. Can you imagine the feeling of the fans? Who is going to defeat this guy? How are we going to defeat him?
The reality is, I mean, you can say that, okay, Roman did beat Brock at SummerSlam 2018. But he really hasn't had like that definitive defining moment of beating Brock Lesnar in his career. He really hasn't. Like, because that match was kind of a fluke where Braun Strowman was on the outside. Brock comes in with a chair, one spear, and it was over. And you didn't even have a chance to really react to it because the crowd didn't want to see that happen. And they just they cut to the end of the show. So I get why they would want to go back to that, because this is as engaged as I have been in this feud in a long time. I know a lot of people don't like Brock Lesnar, and they don't like that he's always in the championship picture, but the build to that match at Crown Jewel was fantastic. It was as good of a, and I mean, they had a great match at 31, WrestleMania about 6-7 years ago, where Seth Rollins had his fame cash in. So I get why they would want to run that back, especially in a big stadium. But to me, the guy that should be the one to take the title off of him is probably Drew McIntyre in my eyes, just because it seems like the way that they were building him up before WrestleMania last year, and then he doesn't beat Bobby Lashley this year, which a lot of us thought he would, but then obviously Lashley has the great title reign. I just think that if it were to happen at 38 at WrestleMania, you kill a lot of birds. You basically achieve a lot of things at the same time. It's like you establish the guy who makes it happen. Then also Drew, who has been working his butt off and has just been grinding through everything. He got fired. He comes back. He deserves a big time moment at WrestleMania. But based off the early reports of what's being planned for next year, it doesn't seem like it's going to happen at next year's WrestleMania.
Talking to Mike Mayer from the Off the Mic Wrestling Podcast. I'm Dan Cialana. I talk to you about wrestling every Sunday night right here on San Antonio Wrestling Showcase. Now, Mike, we're talking about who will finally defeat Roman Reigns. My dream about this situation is that the only man who will defeat Roman Reigns will be a returning Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So I don't know if I've been this dream of mine, this fantasy booking has transcended 2 different radio shows on 2 different radio stations. I won't give up on this dream. I want to see this happen. I want to see The Rock be the one who finally comes back and defeats Roman Reigns, or at least gives him a good run for his money. I don't know if it would make sense story-wise to have a wrestler who hasn't been in the ring for years come back, but I'd love to see it. Are we ever going to see the return of Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and will he come back to defeat his cousin Roman Reigns?
I don't know if he'll come back to defeat his cousin, but I think there is a plan in the works for Rock Roman.
Do you think they're stalling?
I thought that it was going to happen in Dallas next year. Obviously, huge stadium, AT&T Stadium. That seemed like a logical fit, but it looks like scheduling is just not going to work. Rock's like the busiest man in the world. It seems like they want to do it, at least. I mean, anything you read, and logistically, it does kind of make a lot of sense too. SoFi Stadium out here in Los Angeles, where I'm from, in 2 years, WrestleMania 39, 2023. Now, if that happens, look, to me, and I was saying this late last year because I was on your train. I thought, based off the way the storyline with the bloodline and obviously them being cousins, that would have made a ton of sense. But now, I mean, if you want to, I would say let Roman run through everybody, continue to run through everybody, and take this all the way to 2023. And we're talking about the greatest title reign we've ever seen, outside of maybe Bruno Sammartino, which happened, 50 years ago? Yeah. Where he held it for 2,000 days. I'm not expecting that to happen, but I mean, seriously, Walter, the NXT UK champion, he held it for 800 days, but obviously there was a pandemic that prevented him from defending it. It's
it has an asterisk.
But at the same time, it's at this point in time, if it's not going to be Drew McIntyre, if it's not going to be Brock Lesnar, I would say just take it all the way to WrestleMania 39, continue to build this up because there is so much more length on this character and this
phrasing.
And just there's just so much. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. But there's just so much more to do with Roman Reigns as a character and as a performer that you can drag this all the way out through next year into 2023. And then you potentially have maybe the biggest match WWE has put on since Rock Cena. And maybe you could even take it a step further than that. That's how big of a deal Rock Roman would be. And you could say, okay, maybe it doesn't need the title, but it's at this point, outside of who the hell else, if you're not going to do it with Brock Lesnar, and maybe they don't want to put Drew McIntyre over. So that if you get past that, who the hell is going to beat him? There's nobody.
We'll have to see.
Seth Rollins? I
hope not. We'll have to see. And this show goes by so quick, San Antonio Wrestling Showcase. We got just about a minute left here with Mike Mayer from the Off the Mic Wrestling Podcast. And since this is the special Halloween edition, Mike, what do you think is the all-time scariest wrestling angle of all time? I got mine.
I'm trying to think of how we could do this. Are we going spooky, or are we just going scary just because
just
of how
scared you as a child?
Okay, startle me, man. You're putting me on the spot because I was going to go a completely other direction and just be scary in the sense of it's in so bad taste. I don't want to think about it.
Well, I got two for you.
right.
If you can't think of one, I definitely, real
you're
quick.
You're putting me on the spot. So yeah, go ahead. Maybe I'll remember something.
I would say my number 2 scariest of all time was Undertaker locking Ultimate Warrior in a casket for 5 minutes and seeing the Ultimate Warrior almost die on Superstars of Wrestling. But my ultimate scary wrestling moment for this Halloween edition of San Antonio Wrestling Showcase is when the Macho Man Randy Savage was bit by Lucifer the Snake on Superstars of Wrestling. That scared the crap out of me because I thought it was a botch. I thought it was a real life accident, and I was disturbed as a child. Oh my God, hope Macho Man's okay. And we hope you are okay, Mike Mayer, Off the Mic Wrestling Podcast. You got to put out a new episode, man. I'm pushing you. I'm pushing you to do another episode here.
It's been, there's just so much wrestling going on that I have time to react, and then before you know it, I got another show.
I know it's hard to catch up. We got lives and everything going on. But Mike Mayer, how can we find you online?
You can follow me at Off the Mic 28, and the show Twitter handle is OT Mike Wrestling.
All right, Mike Mayer from Off the Mic Wrestling Podcast. Thank you for joining me on San Antonio Wrestling Showcase, and I will be here again next Sunday night talking wrestling. Find me online, SA Wrestling Show for San Antonio Wrestling Showcase.